So usually right beside the button to turn on the sound is a turn on the video. Other than that, I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, this morning on the board of directors, Rebecca couldn't get on her face. There were 6 of us out of the 23 that couldn't, well, there was no photo, no camera shot of us. So I'll just listen.
Okay, that's all right.
I mean, I can see you and Deborah, but if you can't see me, I'll just listen.
That's all right. We are live on Facebook. If you're watching on Facebook, please join us in the Zoom. I am going to post the link on the comment section and on the chat above it. So come join us. There is about a minute or 2 lag between the Facebook and the Zoom. So if you could join us, we'd love to see you.
Okay.
Sit down and see if you can get your picture. You'll be on Facebook.
There's Gavin. We've got Gavin on Facebook. Hi, Gavin. Hi, Dora. Come join us in the Zoom so we feel like there's a bunch of us here. I just posted the link in the Facebook feed and in the comments above it. So come join us. Even if you can't stay the whole time, that's okay. All right, if you want to give them like
Ready?
1 more minute and see
Okay.
if anybody jumps on. If not, we can start right at 12:05.
Super.
Oh, there's Dora. Let's let Dora in.
You want me to share my screen?
Sure, you can. Let me, I will promote you to co-host just in case you need it.
Okay.
Can't do co-host in here. I don't know. That's all right. I'm here. So if you need anything, let me know, but you should be able to share your screen.
Okay. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay. And you tell me when we're ready to move on.
You can go ahead and go.
Okay.
They can come in a little late if they need to,
Okay.
but we're here.
Okay, super. Okay, so we're just going to talk about appraisals today. And, you know, we realtors, we have a love-hate relationship with appraisers. So my topic today is going to be a couple of different things. It's obviously appraising in a totally different market, given the COVID-19 thing, and some changes that have happened recently as a result of that, and some changes that occurred prior to that that are coming into play in a much greater way right now. And so, you know, are these changes going to be short-term or long-term? I really think that some of these things are going to be long-term changes. And I'm only coming at this, I've been doing this for 40 plus years. And, you know, as soon as we start adopting new technology and new things, it makes it easier. Hey, we're going to latch on and keep rolling with it. And you know, companies are doing face-to-face interviews right now, even companies that are hiring. My spouse works for a Fortune 100 company. All of their interviews are face-to-face on Zoom. So more remote working opportunities. We're going to see a lot of that shifting. You know, I think that's going to be positive for a lot of folks, unless you high-I salespeople aren't going to like that very much because you like to have your little social butterfly moments. But we're going to, I think, do a lot more prioritizing of work-life balance. And I think a part of that is, okay, how much time are we spending away from home? So can we get stuff done by remotely? Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And so that's obviously happening with appraising. And one of the things that you're going to see more of, and this actually started a little while back, a couple of years, 2016, is PIWs, property inspection waivers. And some of you have heard of it, some of you haven't. Basically, it's a requirement that all mortgages over $250,000 get an appraisal if you're going to use Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. Well, in 2016, every mortgage needed it, but then 2016 Fannie Mae said, you know what, we're going to allow you to start doing PIWs. And they're doing that now from 2017, which is just a couple years ago, for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. You can now do it not just for new home purchases, but also for refis. So if you've got a seller, they need to sell, but they can't right now, they need to refinance the property, maybe to get equity out, to do a bridge loan or something, I bet that a PIW is going to come into play. So it's a really good idea to know something about this. They are actually less common than more people think because of the requirements. And I'm going to cover that real quick. Some lenders say that PIWs are something unique that they offer, when really it's not. It's depending upon a Fannie and Freddie algorithm. The lender has no control over it. So you might be purchasing a property or refinancing a property, and this PIW is going to be offered to you. Get used to it. And there's a couple things, little caveats you need to be prepared for if you go down this road with the PIW. How to get around the appraisal or formal appraisal and use a PIW. If the prior appraisal for the subject property is already in Fannie and Freddie's database, that's where you start. They've got to have an existing appraisal on the house. Then the prior appraisal has to have a low CU score. That's an overvaluation flag. So if it doesn't have that, great. You're moving on. And then the next thing is the appraisal has to be over 120 days old and in their database. So those are three easy things, very common. If you are doing a refi, the borrower must also be in the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac database. So they've got to have done a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan previously. But on a new sale, whether it's existing home or brand new house, as long as, well, it wouldn't work on a brand new house because the property's not going to be in the database. But if it's on a resale, hey, you're gold if the borrower has not bought a Fannie Mae property before. It doesn't matter. That didn't come into it. So eligible, anybody have any questions on that?
Nothing on Facebook
Okay.
yet.
Okay. Well, just stop me because, I can just roll on this all day.
That's all right.
So eligible transactions, purchases, primary residence, 80% loan to value. Buyers got to obviously be strong and have some cash to put down. Refis, hey, you know what? If it's your present home, it's your primary residence, you can get a PIW if you have 10% of the equity in the property. Not tough in the last couple of years, how we've seen property appreciating. Refi for investors, investment property, maybe a second home, you need to have 25% into it. It requires a 75% LTV. So, it's good for whether you're purchasing new as a new house for yourself, you're refinancing a property, or you've got an investor. Hey, PIW pops up, that may be the way for you to go. But here's some little caveats that come along into this. The borrowers have to be very, very, very clean and very, very strong. Squeaky clean credit, great assets, cash in the bank. You've really got to look immaculate to get a waiver granted. So former appraisals must be in the Fannie Freddie database. I mentioned that. Appraisal waivers. This is where you need to be careful as an agent. If you are out and the listing agent, you've got a buyer, and the listing agent says, hey, we've got a PIW on this property. Okay, remember, your buyers have to be super, super strong. And then secondly, these appraisal waivers can disappear right up until closing. They just fall off the radar. And suddenly that property does not have a PIW in place on it. This is the scary, tricky part that could blow your deal. And the reason for that is if the buyers have any type of income changes, any type of changes to their assets, that algorithm can pop them right out and it just disappears. The lender doesn't see it anymore. Debt ratios, loan to value ratios, all of those things can kick that PIW out off of that property, and there goes your deal. So really carefully now, a lot of lenders do offer PIWs and say, oh, that property's got it, or they talk to your buyers and they talk everybody into this. But you as a license holder need to proceed with caution because it may not be there at the end. So never, ever advise a client to waive their appraisal contingency on that contract because the lender received an appraisal waiver notice at the front end of the loan app. You could be left high and dry, and there's going to be some angry sellers and some angry buyers. And you guys know what's the one rule? Man, we try to avoid getting ourselves into a jam, angry buyers, and a lawsuit, which is even worse.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a difference obviously between a CMA and an appraisal. Does anybody have any questions about the PIWs real quick before I move on? Think we're good?
I think so.
We'll circle back if we need to.
Mm-hmm.
So a CMA is something that a real estate agent would perform. It's an estimated probable selling price. It's a range. It identifies a property, shows the seller and the buyer, the sold competition. It's really a great tool for helping determine a fair listing price and also to show a buyer a buying price. As a buyer, if I were working with a buyer, hey, I'm going to do a CMA on that property because some of the folks here at KW can probably tell you that one of the biggest things that happens in lawsuits and problems with FREC, or TREC here in Texas, is pricing issues. So it's a good idea to do a little CMA and let the buyers and sellers know where that is. And then, so appraisers, that's going to be much more heavier involvement on some computation. They're licensed, they're certified. It establishes value for the property, and it's required by most lenders for properties over 250, except of course refis. So appraisers, everybody knows about appraisers, probably remember this from your real estate classes. They've got the same type of requirements that we do. They've got to be educated, they've got to be licensed, there's continuing ed. There's a little bit difference with appraisers. They do an apprenticeship for 2 years before they can go out on their own. It's required as part of their licensing. Us, we got a real estate license. You get with the wrong broker, you're out there on your own. Not so with appraisers. So they've got some experience. There's a lot of trust placed on them. Mm-hmm. But so big changes in appraisals that have come up. One of the big things we're seeing now is on March 23rd, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac adopted alternative home appraisals due to coronavirus. So we're seeing an increase in some latitude. And I have talked to a few appraisers about, okay, how much of these are you doing? Most of them are still doing the old fashioned call, get the appointment, go, take pictures, measure and all that. They're still doing it the old way, but there's some latitude now if people are fearful, and it's totally up to the inspector. And sometimes they're getting notes on their inspection. Hey, you can do a drive-by on this one, or you can just do a desktop on this. So it depends on whatever that little algorithm pops out for them on that property. But for the most part, they have some latitude. So drive-by appraisals. These are great suburban and rural markets. The appraiser sees the neighborhood's housing stock by driving around the neighborhood, gets a sense of where the house is positioned in the neighborhood, how it compares from the outside to the others. So it's kind of a good way. They don't have to go in the house. There's desktop appraising. They never even come out to the community. This is pretty easy. They just review public records, you know, MLS, tax records, stuff like that. And then they use floor plans and that type of thing to build a appraisal on the property without ever leaving. And then this next one's pretty cool. Curbside appraising. That's where the homeowners do not want the appraiser to come in. They're locked down, don't feel safe about it. The appraiser can actually pull up out front, take photos, do his own thing, stay outside of the house, and then the homeowner walks them through with FaceTime on the phone or Skype and just kind of tours them through the property. And that's kind of a neat thing, but the appraisers I talked to, they have not done very many of them. People are still letting them into the properties. One of the other things, the appraisers that I've talked to, I just had a couple of appraisals done for myself. They all said the same thing. The values aren't changing a whole lot because of the COVID-19. I pulled a couple of market things in the last couple of days, different zip codes. And you know what? Most of the areas still have about a 4-month supply or less of inventory. So we're not inundated with any shifting prices at this point because the housing supply is really pretty low. So desktop and curbside, when are you going to use those? Again, shelter in place or mandates such as work from home. It's just peace of mind for the sellers. The Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the lenders are all trying to work with us in home sellers in this time period. So the big thing, of course, if anybody's been in the business a few years, thinks back to 2005, 6, 7, a lot of concerns about fraud, deception, and wrongdoing when you're dealing with appraisals and stuff. Okay, so on this deal with these new appraisers, these desktops, curbside, there's no chance. The appraisers themselves are not waived to avoid fraud and predatory lending. So I think we're safe from that aspect. So how do you win when you're dealing with an appraiser? Well, the best way to win and get your values on the property that you're selling is to be better prepared for the appraiser. This is something I see a lot of agents not doing. This is how I have really done great on myself, my personal experience. I remodel and sell, and sometimes I turn houses very quickly. But if you are really prepared and you use the right comps and you provide their appraiser with the data, hey, they're going to appreciate it. You've got to show that you are better than everybody else. They'll take that and look at your information. So set yourself up for success by being better prepared. So first time I talk to somebody on a listing appointment, one of the things I say is, hey, have you guys made some improvements to the home? I get them to write all of that stuff down for me before I go any further. And I get receipts if they've got receipts, because it adds more value if it's been professionally done by a licensed or professional contractor, as opposed to somebody that watched HGTV and thought, okay, I'm going to bust this wall out and do this, this, and this. So get receipts, have them provide you with a list of all the major improvements to the property. If you see that the property needs some improvements and the sellers aren't going to do it, exterior painting, new carpeting, landscaping, whatever it is, hey, go out and get some written estimates. Ask the seller, can I go out? You mind if I bring some people in to give some estimates? And then provide that to the appraiser, because otherwise you're getting a real market value on the cost to make that improvement. And you don't want the appraiser just to throw a number out there and give you some by the way, when you talk about doing these repairs on your houses, improvements, don't think that because you just put in a $30,000 kitchen, you're going to get a $30,000 value out of it. It's typically not going to work like that. While it does add value, there is a sliding scale based on how recent the improvement was done, and also on how well it was done. If it's professionally done, it's recent, the last couple of years, you're probably going to get 60% value on a kitchen makeover, probably close to that on a bath improvement. It does add value to the property, but don't get carried away with thinking because you spent $60,000 on your kitchen that's the amount that you're going to get for it. So choosing comps, that's another big thing that people are like, gosh, how do I know what to pick? Well, let's pick some good comps based on what the appraiser is going to look at. So I've got this little red box here. It's a really good thing to take a note on. The most important aspects in appraising: size and square footage range. You want to always be 15 to 20% within range, larger or smaller than the subject property. If the comp is larger than that, it's not going to be a good comp. Keep digging. Lot size, another important thing appraisers look at comparing lot sizes. You get a corner lot, it may be a little bit larger. Get a lot in a cul-de-sac, could be larger, maybe an interior lot, not so big. If your subject property is on an interior lot, you might want to take a look and see what those other lots are in your comps, because that's going to help you. And I'm going to give you a little cheat on how to figure out the correct value to place on a lot in a moment. So location, best scenario, same neighborhood. City, you want to stay within a half a mile. If it's a suburban property that you're trying to come up with a CMA for, stay within a mile or the same school district. Never cross a school district. Max 3 miles if possible. If you go any further than that, the appraiser, when you hand your comps over to the appraiser, they're not going to use those. They're going to stay within this little guideline that I've got on the screen here. Rural, you can go further rural, 5 miles. That's totally acceptable because sometimes it's a little bit harder in rural to find a matching or a comparable property. Condominiums, okay, this narrows the field down of your comp search much, much, much more. You've got to stay in the same building. And if you have to go out of the building, stay within the same complex. Do not cross into another condo community. It's not going to be the same. Appraiser's not going to do that. So do not cross school districts, railroad tracks and highways, or bodies of water. Bodies of water, I don't mean a stream. I mean more like a lake. In Florida, there's several rivers where I live. Can't cross the river, can't cross a big waterway. So even crossing Lake Louisville, that would be a bad choice on comps if you were going to do that. Any questions so far about picking your comps?
Doesn't look like anybody on Facebook has one.
Okay. So try to pick a comparable that is comparable to your subject property by physical and legal characteristics. And legal characteristics, I mean, it's residential. Sometimes we get into an area where a property might be commercial or transitioning to commercial. Okay, those are not good comps if you're going from to commercial to residential or residential to commercial. So stick within the same legal characteristics. Physical features, I see a lot of CMAs that where their 2-story has been used when really they needed to pick a 1-story. So if the house is a 1-story subject, stick to 1-story comps. Don't bump to a 2-story. Not the same thing. Appraisers aren't going to do that. Don't compare a condo to a duplex or a duplex to a condo. That's another mistake that agents make. I know sometimes it's hard to find comps, but you've got to stick to like for like. Date of sale, of course, as recent as possible, preferably within 90 days. Don't go any further out than 6 months. If an appraiser does that, that's on him. But typically it's got to be 6 months or less. It's very, very rare that an appraiser goes more than 6 months out. And certainly they've got the expertise to do that, and we don't. Always remember arm's length transactions. If you see a comp and you realize you're looking in the records and you see it was sold from relative to relative or ex-wife to, trading properties like that, to spouses, divorcing, hey, if that's a distress sale, throw that one out. Don't use that one because they typically sell 15 to 20% below market. That's not going to help you. Remember, we're going to give your 3 comps to the appraiser. You're going to give him a copy of your report so he can see what you're doing. And then if you do most of the work for him, he's going to go, yeah, these look like good comps. Hey, guess what? Your numbers are going to come in. Everybody's going to be happy. So choose wisely. Age of dwelling. Okay, this is another area I see a lot of discrepancies on. New construction is never, ever comparable to a resale property. And by new, I mean nobody has ever lived in the property, never been used, not pre-loved. That's new. The minute somebody moves into it, guess what, guys? It's a used home. It's a resale. So
we have a question real quick
okay.
on Facebook.
Sure.
Tori is asking if you can stay in the neighborhood, should you?
Yes, absolutely. Good question. Thanks for asking that. Stay in the hood. Don't move out if you can help it, because it adds greater weight to your final number that you're going to, in your comps, you're going to hand over to your appraiser. So stay within the neighborhood. And sometimes, if there's a small neighborhood, there's 36 houses, 50 houses, maybe people, they haven't turned over. You might have to go over to a neighboring subdivision. That's okay in that case. That's when you move out of the neighborhood. So it's a case-by-case scenario. Some are going to be a lot easier to do than others. And as you do more and more of these at a higher level, you're going to be so good. You're going to rock these things. So hang in there, stay in the neighborhood, go to the next neighborhood over if those houses are alike, or try to stay within 3 miles if you're moving from neighborhood to neighborhood. 1 mile first and then 3 miles out. So
Tori says thank you.
Okay. So if you are going to, and this scares everybody, don't be afraid. We can do math. If you are going to look at a resale to resale, subject to a comp, you want to try to stay within a 5-year range if you can. And if you can stay within a 5-year range, there is no dollar adjustment, okay? This is the scary part. As you move further out of the 5-year range, we're gonna have to do a little bit of math. It's okay. I'm gonna show you how to do that in a second. It's real easy. You've got a calculator and you have an eraser. No worries. Properties that are 20 years old or more, okay, and we've got a lot of those, especially North Richland Hills, even in Keller. There's a lot of areas that have got some older properties, and all of a sudden you got a new one within the same vicinity, especially down in Fort Worth. You see that you've got a 20-year-old house or a 40-year-old house, and then there's a house that's 5 years old or 7 years old on the same street where somebody's torn something down, put something up. If the properties are 20 years old or more, it's okay to look at comps that are newer. I'd try to stay in the 10-year or less range if I could first, because we're going to make a dollar adjustment for every year older that other property is or newer that the property is. We'll come back to that in a second. Amenities, hey, when you're picking comps, right now we're just talking picking comps. Age, try to stay in the same age bracket. Amenities, pool versus no pool. Skip the house that has a pool and find one that doesn't. The house that people have enclosed a garage and your subject property has a garage, hey, go find one that doesn't have that garage converted. Try to find one that has another 2-car garage or something. Try to keep your comps as close to your subject as possible. This is really the best way to win at getting your value. So this is the Price is Right game. This is real easy. So Agent Dan, you guys can read along if you can see it. He gets a call to list a property. The property has a 2,500 square foot, one-story dwelling, plus bonus, it's got a 1,000 square foot mother-in-law cottage out back. We see this a lot in our area, don't we? The cottage is of the same quality as the main house, because you know you cannot move your mother-in-law into anything less than what you're living in. So for his appointment, Agent Dan has added up all the habitable or livable square footage on the property. He provides the seller with comps of properties for 3,500 square feet. Comps are in the same neighborhood, and they all come in at $200 a square foot. So Dan's got 3,500 square feet, and he's $200 a square foot. Dan lists the house for $700,000. The seller is happy when it sells shortly thereafter at close to the list price. Okay, does anybody have any idea, has Dan done the right thing, or is Dan in for trouble? So here's the thing. You need to mind the gap on this one, because this is going to trip you up. Appraisers consider the main dwelling only. So that property that Dan looked at was a 2,500 square foot house. That's the size that Dan should have been looking at comps for. If you have to pass through unconditioned space to get to second spaces, such as casitas, barn dominiums, mother-in-law cottages, she sheds, no matter how awesome they are, appraisers will not count that space as part of the square footage used when doing their appraisal. And it's kind of, you're thinking, oh, this can't be right. Look at Ropes and Ranch, they've got all those casitas. Trust me, this is the rule that appraisers go by. Secondary structures are only given a modicum of value. I know we see a lot of properties around here that are awesome. They've got these fabulous shops. My neighbors have $100,000 shops on their properties out here. They look awesome, but guess what? They do not have the value as the main house. And that when they go to sell their properties, that shop is not going to be countable as part of the main structure. So if the larger conditioned space is that of the cottage, that will be the main property considered for the appraisal, even if the current main dwelling sits in front of the cottage. Okay, everybody following? Because this is really kind of hard to grasp. And this is the part that messes everybody up on when they're doing their CMAs, and then we go get an appraisal on it when we sell the property. So tandem bedrooms. I don't know if you guys have seen any of those recently. We used to see a lot of them. But the bedroom you pass through to get to the second bedroom only has half the value. So if your house is $150 a square foot is what your CMA comes out at, guess what? That half bedroom is only worth $75 a square foot. And remember, this is not me making this up. This is actual appraising practices. So get yourself out of trouble. If you go and look at a house to put it on the market, you're talking to the seller, you might want to prepare them as you're talking to them at their CMA that from an appraisal standpoint, because they have to pass through one room to get to the second, that first room, that first bedroom, half the value. If a commode does not have a sink in the same room, it's not a half bath. Don't care that it's got out in the garage, it's not a half bath, it's just a commode. Full baths, you have to have 3 out of 4 things to call it a full bath. It's got to have a shower, tub, toilet, sink. Here's another one we see a lot, especially in older properties. Bedrooms have to have at least 70 square feet. The ceilings have to be over 7.5 feet high at that to get that 70-foot square footage in. Anybody has this, call me, I'll walk you through it. Basically, you can have like converted space up in an attic, and it's a bonus room. The side walls on that space have got to be 7.5 feet. That's where you start counting your interior square footage for that room. Window or door to the exterior has to be provided for egress. It's a fire code. And transom windows, they don't count, can't get out of it. And you know, people always think, oh, if it doesn't have a closet, it's not a bedroom. No, closets are not required for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So don't worry about it, not whether it has a closet or not. Just got to be 70 square feet and 7.5 foot ceilings. So how do you make adjustments on size? It's really not very difficult. And it sounds frightening. People hate doing math. But if the square footage on the comp and the subject is less than 100 square feet, don't make any adjustments. Just roll with that one. But if it's more than 100 square feet, here's a little formula to obtain the average price of the comps. You take so I've got some examples here. Comp number 1 is 2,500 square feet. It's sold at $373,000. So you take 373, divide it by 25. That's $149.20. Round down, 149. Comp number 2, square foot. Comp number 2 is 2,575 square feet. It's sold at $385. So it's $149.51 a square foot. Okay, round up to 150 because it's $149.50 and more, right? $149.50. Just round up. Don't work in pennies. Work in round numbers. So $150 on that one. Comp number 3 is 2,735 square feet. It's sold at $393. Hey, that one came in at $143.70. We're going to round that one up to $144. Okay, here's the trick that's going to make you awesome when you do your CMA. You're going to add up the 149, the 150, and the 144. That's the price per square foot for your 3 best comps. And you are going to divide that by 3, and you're going to come up with $147.67 or $148 per square foot. So everybody got that? You take your 3 comps, figure out the price per square foot, then you're going to average that out so that you've got a good number to work with moving forward. Hey, if you show this to your appraiser, he's going to appreciate that you know what you're doing, and it's going to build some credibility with you on your CMA for him to use on his appraisal. Any questions? We good? Gonna rock on. Okay, so now you're going to look at, okay, what's the difference between the subject property and your comps? This is where people that are always concerned, oh, I can't make adjustments. I don't know how to do this. This is really easy. This is the first major adjustment that you're going to make when you're looking at your comps and doing your CMA. So if your comp is 2,570, remember the first one was less than 100 square feet difference. We're not going to make any adjustments. We're just going to leave that selling price as it was on comp number 1. And comp number 2, we know it's 2,575 square feet. Our subject is 2,500 square feet. So comp 2 is larger. It's 75 square feet larger than our subject. So just hang on to that for a minute. And then comp number 3 is 2,725 square feet. It is 225 square feet larger. So this is the really easy way. Do I add? Do I subtract? This is where people get confused. So if you just write this down, if the comp is superior to the subject property, you are going to subtract from the comp. You're going to subtract that dollar value from the comp's price. So let's say, just off the top of my head, house was $200,000, and you are going to just, let's say it's got $1,500 better in square footage, we're going to subtract 1,500 from the $200,000. You're going to, here's your comp. I mean, your subject. You always start with your subject. If a comp is better, you need to bring it down to your subject. If the comp is worse, you need to bring it up. Superior, bring it down. You're going to subtract. Inferior, you're going to add to bring it up. Okay. Maybe take a screenshot of this slide so you guys can have this as a cheat sheet to remember. We can send you the notes. So now here's the third step. You're going to find the dollar value adjustment for difference in square footage for each comp.
Bag.
And you're going to take, somebody have a question? Are we good?
Can they see you?
Okay, so I can't see anybody, so hopefully it's good. We're going to
I think we're good. I think there was just some background noise.
Okay. So down at the bottom here is a little cheat sheet for you. If the comp is larger, we're going to take 40% of that square footage, 40% of that price. So it's 0.40 times 148 times negative 75. And I just, you know, I do math like this. You may need me to help you do it a different way. However you get there, I tend to work with negative numbers a lot. So you're going to have a negative 4440 or negative $4,444 deduction from the superior comp. This is why I work in negatives. Up here, you see where it says comp number 2 is set negative 75 square feet. I take the subject and I take away the comp from it because I want to work in negative numbers. And those are the parts a little bit confusing, but just remember 40% times $148 times 75 is going to be $4,440. Because that comp is superior, it's up here, your subject is here, we've got to bring it down to make them the same. You're going to deduct $4,440. If the comp is smaller than the subject property, I've got an example here, 253 square feet. Your subject is here, your comp is here. We're going to have to add to the comp to bring it up. And then you can see on the screen, it's 40%, 1 times 148. That was our number we found. Remember, we averaged out the comps, or $14,978. Where am I getting the 40% from? That's the number appraisers use. They use between 30 to 37 to 52% sometimes, but it's 40 is the average. That's the safe number to play with. So go with that 40%. If you use that, we're now going to go on. I'm going to show you quickly how that works out. So you're adding, if you're multiplying 40 times 148, you're taking into account the number that appraisers use to give you a dollar value to move square footage around. It just works, and this is what they teach appraisers, so go with it. Okay, adjustments for lots. This is another big one that we really leave a lot of money on the table and make errors, and the appraiser is going to do this. So it would be really good of you to jump on and do this. Find the value of a lot on this example is 89.9 in the tax records. That's where I pulled the number from. That's probably the only way you're going to find it. The appraiser knows what those lots go for. 9,000 square foot lot, 89.9 divided by 9,000. That's just under $10 a square foot for a lot. If the comp has more square feet than your lot does, remember you got to bring it down. So you're going to take away from that that comp and bring it down to your level. And the same if your comp has a smaller lot, you're going to add. And you can do this. It's real easy. I've got it on here. I don't want to run out of time because I've still got some great things I can share. There's 43,560 square feet in an acre. I remember that from 1979 when they beat it into our heads at real estate school. You can't remember it, write it down. Just never forget it. So you can also find a Google tool to convert acres to square feet. Just go figure out the lots, practice with a couple of them. You'll find you're going to pick up some money for your CMAs. Sales concessions, appraisers really look at that. Get the info from the MLS. It's a dollar for dollar adjustment. There's no funky calculations going on. Okay, age is a big adjustment. I've got this little scale here. This comes from BPOs and appraisers. You are welcome to use this. It just kind of helps you get an idea. All of the depreciation, everything's already factored into this. There's no adjustment if the age is within 5 years. Greater than 5 years, adjust 25 to 50%. But guess what? Here's a cheat sheet on the left side of the screen. You're just going to take that number there. I've got an example down at the bottom. House is 25 years older. 25 years minus 5 years is a 20-year difference. Remember, you get 5 years, no adjustments automatically. House is 375, 20 years times 3,125. That's the midpoint between 350 and 400. It's about 3,125. You're going to make a $62,500 adjustment if you've got a house that's 5 years old or 25 years old. You see how you're going to get to the end point? I know I'm really rushing through this. What I'm trying to tell you is don't be afraid to make adjustments. You've got to do this to win at getting your CMAs converted into good appraisals. Try to stay within 5 to 7 years. That way it's easy math and it just looks better in your appraisal. You know, sometimes you got to go out and do what you got to do. Just remember, here's a little cheat sheet. I think you can follow through. I tried to spell it out for you. Garages, oh man, this is the big one. How many times you go to look at a house and they've converted the garage? Okay, this is a bad move. It may be more living square footage, but guess what? Not the intent, and it's probably not even done well. So garages, guess what? 5 to 10 grand per bay, depending on the price range of the home. If it's I'd say just use that number, 5 to 10, you're safe, depending on the quality of the home. So if it's really well done, maybe take 5 grand off, but really it's going to be 10 grand because it's the price of building a garage is 30,000 plus. Bedrooms, I typically don't make adjustments to bedrooms. It's very subjective, but sometimes you're looking at 2 houses. They're the exact same. It's D.R. Horton or whoever, same builder. One's a 3-bedroom version of it. One's a 4-bedroom. In that case, you know what? You might want to make an adjustment. 3 bedrooms is certainly better than 2. 4 bedrooms better than 3. But once again, it's subjective. You know, what are the room sizes? I don't mess with bedrooms very often. I kind of leave that alone. Pools, $7,500, guys. You got a $100,000 pool. Bad news for you. If it's not brand new and pristine and thoroughly modern and totally awesome, even then it's probably going to have maybe 60% of the value. So you spend 100 grand on a pool and tomorrow it's worth 60 grand. So where does the $7,500 come from the average pool? That's the fill-in value. That's what it costs to fill in and haul off all the concrete and everything to get rid of it, to get it out of there. Generally, pools don't have any value. Look at the tax record in the county that you're doing a CMA in to get an idea, because like Collin County, they have a number in there, 10 grand to fill in a pool, because there they make you pull out all the plumbing, remove everything, costs more, haul off concrete. But a new custom pool, typically 2 years old, 15 to 20% of cost. So bad news. Corner lot, you think, oh man, it's on a corner lot, it's great. Hey, the only people that make money on a corner lot, I know this from experience, home builders. We love to charge lot premiums on corner lots, more sod. So corner lots, be careful, they're really not that popular. You end up with a smaller backyard. Appraisers will deduct. It's about 10 grand if there's no backyard. So remember that. New roofing, rewiring, plumbing, it's that kind of stuff. You cannot upgrade or give them any value for that. New air conditioning units, hey, it's nice. It's got a new air conditioning unit, a new roof, that's a selling feature, but it's not a dollar value feature because the house is supposed to have a roof and air conditioning and whatever. You can't count maintenance items. I know buyers, sellers all the time go, oh, well, I would just put a new $20,000 roof on here. Hey, fantastic, you got a roof. Yippee. Adds no value. So real quick, I got one last thing here. I don't know if we'll have time to cover it. I'm going to take you over to the dark side if you guys are interested, and that's weighting comps. And this is scary because it's math, but it's real easy. So you've got 3 comps. You just finished your adjustments. Comp number 1 is at 225. Comp number 2 sold. Comp number 1 is the least similar. Comp number 2, it's the next least similar. It sold for 230. Comp number 3 is the most similar to your subject property. It sold for 235. So here's how you're going to do this. Normally, you guys do this kind of stuff and you're going, okay, well, 225 plus 230 plus 235 is 690 divided by 3. Woo, my house should sell for around $230,000. Not so fast. Because appraisers don't think like that. And most of your agents out there don't. You want to get some more money for your seller? Let's weight them. And this real easy. On this slide here, you can see A plus B plus C equals Y. We're going to take the least similar comp number 1, and we're going to take that value times 1, $225,000. If you look in the bottom box here. Comp number 2 was the next least similar. That one was a little more closer to your subject property than the first comp. We're going to weight that one twice. So now that one's going to 230 times 2 is 460. And then comp number 3 is the most similar to your subject property. We're going to weight that one 3 times what we did the other ones. That one, so 235 times 3 is 705. Now we're going to add all of those numbers up. It's just adding, guys, adding a little bit of multiplying. You're safe. It's in your safety zone. We are going to do 225 plus 460 plus 705 is $1,390,000. But now we are going to divide that by 6 because you had weights 3 plus 2 plus 1, right? 3 plus 2 plus 1. So that's 6. Trust me. So
We believe you.
okay. So now we've got our new price, 1.39 million divided by 6 gives us a new reconciled price of 231,667. You remember on the previous page, we would have left money on the table for the seller, and the appraiser sure isn't going to give it to us because you know how they are. And the buyer's already bought the property. And so that money's gone. But if you do this and you can show this, I put the comps up on your listing agreement or whatever on the MLS. Let the other agents see how you came up with your number. It's pretty hard to argue when you've got in the math. So pretty much cranked it in here. I'm done. There's more to this. This is like a 4-hour thing. I crammed it into an hour. Just remember, calculators, pencils, and erasers all works. Okay, we good? Any questions?
This was an amazing class, Deborah. I've never actually gotten to sit through an appraisal class, so I'm really happy that I got to do that.
Good.
But
Awesome.
You were very clear. I don't think anybody really had any questions because you taught so well, and we thank you for doing that.
All right. Well, I know it's a lot of math. It's not scary. I'm going to challenge everybody. You know what? Everybody out there is doing a CMA. Don't do a CMA. Go in and do an RPR. I mean, that's like awesome. That's totally the next level. It's going to make you the baddest realtor in Denton. Because seriously, you start whipping this stuff out on your listing appointments, you're going to just, those other people are going to look like, do they even know what they were doing? Because you're bringing real information to the seller. And you know what? It's pretty hard when they're in love with the property, they're emotionally involved, they've done all this work, they've done every HGTV fixer-upper episode in one property, and they just think it's worth $1 million, and it's not worth $1 million. This makes you not be the bad guy, but it backs up what you're saying. So there you go. If you have any questions, call me. Happy to walk you through one, whatever I need to do, okay?
Yes. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. We'll have to have you back if you'll
Okay,
come
come
back.
on. I'm ready.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Diana.
Bye, everyone. Have a
Bye.
great day.
Thank you.